This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast and community for creative people who value and enjoy working alone. Hello, everybody. I am Franklin Taggart, and this is Your Own Best Company, a podcast for people who love working alone. And I am really delighted today to welcome a guest that I've only met recently, but I'm excited to hear more about what she has to say. Sheryl Plouffe is a coaching consultant working with professional people in the area of really getting their video game together in marketing and promoting themselves. She's got a great 4-piece plan that we're going to be learning about today. Sheryl was a broadcast professional in Canada for 25 years. And when she was through with that career, she decided to bring her on-camera knowledge and off-camera knowledge to a wider audience, and has been coaching and consulting now since 2017. Sheryl, welcome.
Franklin, so great to be with you. I am jazzed to dive into this topic today.
Tell me a little bit about, how did you know that this was the thing that you wanted to do after your broadcast career was over?
I didn't originally know that this was where I was going to end up.
Okay.
But what really happened was it was pretty clear as social media was taking off. And I'm talking about around 2013 or so is really when the seed was planted in me. But I could see that I was in an industry that was on the decline, and I wanted to be on the side of expansion. So I really saw that pretty clearly at around the 2013 mark. And it took me around 4 years to really get myself together to the point where I wanted to leave that industry altogether to start my own business. Because the truth is, I had a great position. I was doing wonderful work. I enjoyed it. I loved the team, but there was something inside of me that kept nagging at me to say, Sheryl, use your expertise and the knowledge and insights and experience that you've gained here in the world of what, something more expansive as opposed to something that was retracting.
Excellent. And so now you are coaching full-time. How did you end up choosing coaching as a direction?
Well, I do coaching and consulting. And I suppose that, if we really wanted to get into the definition of both of those terms, they are different from one another. Coaching is really helping people to discover things on their own and be able to see the path on their own. You're just there as a conduit to help them see that for themselves. Yeah. And I do that to a large degree. A lot of what I do is consulting, right? Where I'm actually giving advice and saying, okay, here's what I advise that happens and here's what we'll do. And so at the end of the day, what I do now is create and implement content plans. And that's a very customized approach, but it's based on a lot of fundamental strategies that I have devised. And then I implement those for businesses. So I'm typically working with the business owner or, the CEO of a company or someone who is a representative or spokesperson from that business. Because what I really believe is that having people be seen and on camera is a big component to that trust and authority building that is so paramount to these strategies.
More and more every day, right?
Yeah, I think it's really a key component of this. I'm not the person that you come to if you want an animated video or you want a stick figure type of video, an explainer or something like that, although we can do those things. Yeah. But I am more of a person who is able to, let's say, interview, much like you're doing with me right now, Franklin, right? I interview people and I can extract those nuggets of wisdom from them. And then we'll make videos often from the answers to my questions, which have been strategically formulated. And I'm asking specific questions, knowing what kind of answers I'm looking to get for the type of video we're trying to create. So we really use a reverse engineering format in order to extract those nuggets of wisdom from a business owner and make the videos. But the beautiful thing about how we do it and how we like to do it is that we end up with a much more conversational, natural, and authentic answer and result. So it's not promotional video that you typically see. It doesn't even feel like an advertisement, and it's really about building a brand.
Right. You brought up the term content planning, and I think that that's going to be a really critical thing for us to talk about. And one of the things that I think we all see is the way that people use, in particular, social media. That a lot of what they do there is not done strategically. It's not done with any plan in mind. And particularly when it comes to video, a lot of times you'll see people that will go live and just start talking and not have really anything to say. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about, first of all, you've got a 4-part framework that I think is absolutely brilliant that we'll cover more in detail as we go. And planning is central to that. But I want you to talk a little bit about when people are planning, what should they be considering?
I think in the planning phase, there are a lot of different factors we have to look at in the planning phase. And it starts with a lot of the fundamentals. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't have the fundamentals down yet. They think they might have the fundamentals down, but then you start to dig a little deeper and you find out that they don't really know who it is that they want to attract. They don't have a real clear definition of who it is that they want to attract. So it's difficult then to figure out what platforms you should be on if you don't know who that person is, because now we can't figure out where they're hanging out if we don't know who they are. So it's just starting with these fundamental aspects, a lot of marketing 101 type stuff. But once we know that, and if we know, yes, this is definitively the person that we're looking to attract, great. Now we go, okay, where are those people hanging out? Chances are they are hanging out on more than one platform, right? Because people are on their mobile devices. Statistics show, depending on what source you use, people are opening their phones upwards of 100 times per day.
Yeah.
So we know that they're on multiple different types of platforms. So if we can find the juncture between what it is that you do, what it is you're trying to accomplish, maybe what you're selling, who the people are you're trying to attract and where they hang out, now we have a much clearer definition of what we should be doing. Because if we know what platform, and it's a vertical platform, say, i.e. a TikTok or something of that nature, then we know that, okay, now we can start talking about production. And that does fall into the planning phase to some degree, because we have to look at, well, do you have a team of skilled people who could take on some of these roles and responsibilities as it pertains to creating content or not?
Yeah.
Or are there people on your team who are interested to maybe to learn to do some aspects of it, but you'll outsource other pieces? It also is a time when we look at technology. How tech savvy is the owner of the business or people on their team? Often I find that the case is they're not tech savvy. So we need to determine that. So a lot of different things. And we haven't even talked about the content creative yet. We're just looking at more the logistics at this stage.
Yeah.
And so then we start moving into, okay, great. Now we start to build a picture of what kind of technology or sort of team we have, skill set, technology tools, video equipment, audience, and now we can start talking about the creative. Okay, great. So if that's the case, how will we position you as an authority? That's ultimately what we do, is how can we position you as a preeminent authority and subject matter expert, possibly even thought leader at what it is that you do? And that's part of the whole planning process in our view.
Could you talk a little bit about positioning, just in terms of the place that it has in marketing? I have a feeling that not a lot of people know that term unless they've already been involved in marketing at some level in the past. When you're talking about it, especially from a video perspective, you mentioned, showing your expertise and things like that. But what are some other examples of positioning that people would be able to understand it by?
Well, I think positioning and branding go hand in hand. Yeah. And so if we look at what is brand is perception and it's reputation. So how can we then build a reputation around your subject matter expertise, which in turn then positions you as someone that becomes renowned, recognized, known, seen, and consistently showing up. And that's how I see it.
Okay.
And the positioning is tied back to, and I always like to ask this question, and it sounds like a simple question, but sometimes it's difficult to answer. And that is the question of what do you want to be known for?
Yeah.
And if you can answer that, and often it's challenging to answer that, what do you want to be known for? I'm not talking about being known for 20 different things. What is the singular thing you really want to be known for? And that's more challenging for people to answer.
Very, very, very true. Between avatar exercises and positioning exercises, I think that those are the two ways that I spend the majority of my time with clients.
Well, you know what, Franklin, it's actually an interesting point you made there, because I think as one thing that happens, I think a lot in the business world or in entrepreneurship is people are afraid of putting themselves out there for fear that they're putting their stake in the ground and that they're going to have to stand by that forevermore.
Yeah.
And I think that evolution and, growing in your company is a natural thing that happens. And so even though you might be speaking about something with a certain point of view today, you might change your point of view in 3 years or 5 years from now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If I think back to what I believed and what I knew back in 2013, when I really started to move in this direction, I feel differently about a lot of things. I have different viewpoints. I have different belief systems now because I've learned and experienced so much in the last many, many years.
Yeah.
So I like to paint that picture because I don't want business owners to feel like, gee, I don't want to get out there and express this idea or opinion or thought on said topic for fear that I'll be stuck having to stick by that for the next 20 years. That doesn't have to be the case.
Oh, especially now, the point of view of the day is so prominent online anyway. You brought up earlier, being able to identify the customers that you want to reach and serve. Can you tell us a little bit about the customers that you want to reach and serve?
Well, it ties back exactly into the moment ago when I said that things change. Yeah. If you'd asked me that question 4 years ago, the answer would have been different. But the answer today is I work with 6 and 7 figure businesses, 6 and 7 plus figure businesses. And I'm not so much the person that you come to when you are first just starting out and you don't have a proof of concept yet.
Yeah.
It's better to come to me once you have a proven proof of concept and you have something that you're selling, whether it be a membership, a mastermind, a course, a program, something that you're selling. And now you're just looking for ways to grow that and to get more eyeballs on it. That's really where I come into play. So, but that took a long time for me to figure out that was specifically the person that I'm working with, even though it was there all along. But sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. So, I think that's just part of the evolution that you go through as a business owner as well. But yeah, it's pretty clear to me now that it's 6 and 7 figure plus businesses.
What did it take for you to discover that?
I think a lot of trying things that didn't always succeed, right?
Yeah.
That's just the part of the process of growing and learning. So I would maybe create a course or do some kind of program and launch it. Sometimes I would launch something and it did succeed financially, but then it was not a success for me because I found out that it wasn't really the thing that drove me to want to continue to teach that thing.
Yeah.
Or the reverse was true. I would launch something that didn't financially do really well, but then I was, also kind of painting myself into a corner, and then other projects would come along. So a lot of this, I think, is just part of growing and evolving. And I think that's been my journey. And I think the pandemic did reveal a lot of things for me in terms of when the pandemic began, I was more on the DIY side. So I was doing more coaching and programs that were directed at people to teach them how to make their own videos.
Right.
And I saw some success with that. But when the pandemic hit, I realized and had, frankly, somewhat of an epiphany that people don't have time anymore to learn how to edit a video.
Yeah.
Right now, people are panicking, they're pivoting, they're shifting, they're trying to survive. So that really was what prompted me to spend the balance of 2020 working on creating done for you and done with you systems rather than teaching the DIY, because I just realized that the people I want to work with don't have that kind of time.
A lot of people are reluctant to get involved in video because they think that the production is too complicated or too costly. Help us understand, what kind of like bare bones production do we really need to consider here?
Well, I will tap back into a lot of the DIY stuff that I was teaching originally, because I think there is some value to doing that if someone is bootstrapping. They're at the earliest of stages. They don't have money to invest. They don't have a team. There is that stage that you have to go through as you grow through the painful first few months, typically, of a business. And so I think when it comes to production, and again, in the 4-step framework, we have the planning and then we have the producing of the content. So we're on step 2.
Yeah.
In the produce phase, it can be complicated. It can also be very simple. So there are definitely tools that people can use on their own to create amazing looking videos with apps on a smartphone. So you don't have to have a studio with 5-point lighting and DSLR cameras and big investment.
Yeah.
If you have a phone and you have the App Store, you can find amazing apps that will allow you. Yes, you're going to have to learn how to use the apps, and there's, a process to doing that. But I think that the apps that exist today are amazing to create videos. But it's limited, right? Yeah. There's only so much you can do with an app, I think, creatively. And it does require some level of skill. Even though you have an app and you technically can create a video in terms of assembling pieces together, what is often lacking is the context of the video itself. It's the messaging of the video that matters the most. So a lot of people will say, okay, great, I have my app and I've learned how to use it and I'm doing all these fancy things and I put the words on the screen. But what are those words? And are you using a proper framework within the video itself to hook your viewer in the first few seconds of the video? Are you then educating them or providing some value in the video itself? Because what we see often on social media is people are trying to use it as selling media.
Yeah.
But we're trying to use social media to build trust and familiarity and, getting people to know who you are as a brand. I think that's the biggest advantage. Yes, of course, you can sell on social media, but most people are using it the wrong way. And then the third part of that equation in the video itself is, what's the call to action? What is the next step that you want people to make? So I think it has to do with the messaging of the video. That's the most important thing. Can you make a video? Yes, you can. There are lots of apps. And then we start to move into, okay, great. If that is a challenge and you don't know how to put a framework together for a video and you don't know what to say, and let's say people on your team have been like, hey, you should really be doing more video. Why don't you just put up a camera and just talk to it? It's easy enough to say that, but to the person who is a bit of deer in headlights and they're going, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to say. And then they feel nervous and they're talking to an inanimate object, which is weird and unnatural. There's just a lot of roadblocks there for a lot of people who've not done it before. So, production can be complicated and complex, which is when I suggest people outsource it. I don't think it's the best interest of a business owner to sit there at 3:00 in the morning editing music beds on a video or trying to add lower thirds on it. No, it just doesn't make sense. Better to outsource that stuff. But can you make some videos on apps? Yes, you can. It's more about the messaging. As long as you've got that nailed down, you'll have at least a shot.
One of the things that I forgot to mention is that we're talking primarily today about the context of live video, but pre-recorded video. The four-part framework works for both and should be used for both. So when we're talking about the four steps, the four P's here, we want to make sure that people understand they can be used both in the pre-recorded context and in the live context.
Yes. Can I share one of the biggest mistakes I see people make with live video?
Oh, absolutely.
I see a lot of people starting live video and they're going to produce it. They're going to go live, which essentially is producing, because there isn't a lot of post-production when you're doing it live. And that's really the benefit of it. It's why I produce my Cashing on Camera show live, because there's not a lot of post-production. But even when you're going live and you're going to produce your live video, people will open the video in often one of two ways. One way is they'll open and say, "Hi, everybody. Hey, everyone. So, hey, and so what happens then by addressing the camera, the lens, as everyone or everybody, there's no personal connection, because the person on the other end knows that you're not talking just to them. You're talking to everyone, the collective everyone. And this is something that we're taught as broadcasters, that when you are talking to the camera, in my case, in a studio environment, to these massive $50,000 cameras, you might be speaking to your smartphone. It doesn't matter. Speak to one person, personalize and personify the lens so that you're speaking to one person. You will have much more success in making connection and building trust that way. The other mistake that I see people do is they'll start the live stream and it's sort of this wait and see how many people come on live before they actually start into the content.
Yeah.
So they'll open the live stream and they're like, okay, we're just kind of going to wait for a little while. And then they sit there in silence, drinking tea until 4 people come on, but that's not until 7 minutes into the video.
Yeah.
You've lost people at that point. So what's better to do with your live video is use the framework of engage, educate, and enroll right from the get-go. The first words that should be coming out of your mouth, whether you're doing a recorded video or especially, a live video, is have either a startling statistic, a bold statement, or a short question. Those are the first words that come out of your mouth. And then you can say things like introducing yourself or saying, hey, we're going to, hopefully we get some people, more people on or whatever. But let the first few words that come out of your mouth be something that engages the audience.
Very good. That's just stellar advice. I was going to share a trick that I use whenever I'm doing a talking head video that's pre-recorded. And that is that I usually try to recognize one person that I know in the avatar that I'm trying to reach. Yes. And I put a picture of them. I have my camera actually in front of my screen, and I put a picture of them directly behind the camera so that I'm looking at them as I'm speaking. It's brilliant. And that helps me to personalize it more.
And it's a great example of do what works for you. Do what you need to do. Yeah. I have had other students in the past who've done similar things, Franklin, where they'll take one person took a picture of someone and then they put a little hole in the middle and then they stuck it on so that the camera was in the very creative
so
solutions.
They're looking right in their eyes.
Yeah. And I think that's great. Do whatever's going to work for you.
Yeah. That's very cool. I was a little bit curious as you were talking about the clients that you work with. It sounds like to me that these folks, in order to get to 6 or 7 figures, it's really likely that they've had some exposure or experience with video before. But what stage of production are they ready to move into that you help them get to?
I would say that people who are at the 6 and 7 figure mark haven't always done video, but most of them have spoken.
Yeah.
And I think that's the distinction. Most of them, to have reached that level, will have had to have put themselves out there somehow. It might not be in video format yet, which is often why they come to me, because their online presence isn't dialed in, but they will have either spoken to networking groups or been part of virtual or in-person networking groups. They've spoken to some degree. Maybe they've been on a podcast, something of that nature, but they're not 100% new to the idea that I have to show up and say something of value.
Right.
But what they're lacking sometimes is the video representation of that, or the video asset that represents that.
I'm intrigued by the thing that you described, where you help people to create their systems that help them to get these things done, so that they don't have to, first of all, experience the learning curve that goes along with it. And I'm sure that there are a lot of ways that we could talk about systems. But
yes.
how...
Well, I mean, when it comes to systems, and I think this is one of the things that makes me perhaps a little unique in the sense that I take the best practices of the broadcasting industry into what I do. And if I look back on my years in television, it's typically a lean team of people who are creative and are creating content on a schedule and often on a deadline, 24/7, as was the case for us at least. So a lot of those best practices come into what I do today. So when I say systems and technology, automation, a lot of back end tools that I use, that I like to nerd out on these types of things, where I will take this tool and figure out a way how to get that connected to this tool. And now this is automated, so now I don't have to do it. And I think that's really where the systems come into play. A lot of it is tracking, organizing, making sure that, everything is where it needs to be, so that it can be easily found by you in the future, but maybe even by other team members as well.
Let's move on to the next part of your framework.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to publishing the content, the beautiful thing about live video is that if you conduct your live stream, and as soon as you hit end, you end that broadcast, that live in real-time broadcast, there is no publishing really. It's published for you. And that's what's beautiful about that. When I produce the Cash In on Camera show, it's a live video stream, and then we repurpose it to an audio podcast. I do it live, and I do it with a tool that allows me to multi-stream, meaning I'm doing the work once, but I'm live streaming it to all of these different platforms of my choosing simultaneously. When I hit end, it goes out to all those platforms at the same time. So the publishing is cut down dramatically, because now there isn't a lot of post-production. In other words, production that happens post-recording, in this case. But with recorded video, yes, you would hit stop or end on whatever device it is that you're using. You're going to hit stop, and now you have a file and really raw footage that you have to do something with. So now comes the post-production piece. So the publishing is far easier when you do it live. The scary thing for people, though, with live is that it's live. There isn't any going back. So it's best to let go of your perfectionist tendencies if you're going to start doing live streaming. This is one thing that I like to teach people too, is like, it's not about perfection. No one's expecting it but you. No one is expecting perfection but you. And it's really just important to just start doing it. And it's through the process of doing it that you build your confidence, you build your skill set, and you build your audience and build your brand.
On the publishing side of things, you mentioned that you multi-stream and you're putting it out in a lot of different places, all live at the same time. What are your favorite live channels?
Oh, that's a tough one. I've been on Facebook for a long time. I started that really as a result of being, frankly, forced to when I was a broadcaster, because that was one of the new responsibilities that landed in our laps as TV presenters. Hey, by the way, you're going to start building a Facebook page. And so I've been on it for quite a long time. I like Instagram a lot. I like Instagram a lot. But what's interesting about Instagram is that I don't live stream to Instagram. So if I had to break it down, I would say my favorite live streaming platform would probably be Facebook, specifically to my group, Facebook group, just because that group of, I think we're at 900 now, are very highly, I guess, targeted or curated group of people who are very interested in what I'm talking about. So I like that. And then I would follow that up with some video on Instagram, maybe doing some stories or something of that nature.
What about LinkedIn? Are you doing any live broadcasting to LinkedIn?
I do. I like to multi-stream to my YouTube channel, my Facebook group, as I mentioned, my Facebook page,
Yeah.
Twitter, and LinkedIn all at the same time.
I'd
I think
encourage,
LinkedIn is a huge opportunity for the right people.
I'm going to encourage people to just check the show out. Cash In on Camera is, it features some amazing guests, and you must be just out there, networking your body off to get the guests that you find. They're
You know
really, really
what?
high quality.
Here's what's interesting is that I haven't really had to fight too hard to get a lot of people to be on the show because they reach out to me.
Yeah.
Like people are reaching out to me and asking me to be on the show.
Very
Am I
cool.
doing some outreach? Yeah, of course I am, but it's really, I think, been one of the things that I have loved most about going in this direction with an interview based live stream podcast is that it's not as much of an uphill battle as you might think.
Right.
And I love that, it doesn't feel like we're blasting through, the snowstorm uphill both ways. It's been remarkably, I don't say easy. It's not really easy, but it's been, there hasn't been as much friction as you might think.
I was really amazed. I was able to watch a few episodes between the time that we talked last and today. And the quality of your guests is just amazing. And the topics that you talk about are all relevant. They're all really great, informative topics for small businesses. You're right on target.
We try. Yeah, we definitely try to do that. And, it's interesting too, I think, when people want to say, let's say somebody wanted to launch their own live stream podcast, similarly to what I've done, is they get a little bit bent out of shape around waiting for everything to be aligned perfectly and to have 110% clarity and have 50 amazing guests lined up and all of these different things that people think that they need in order to launch,
Yeah.
which is not true, right? It's better just to start the process, have some baseline, some foundation, but it doesn't have to be everything aligned before you start. And a lot of it does start to come together over time. And that's been my experience as well. But we've been getting great results right from the get-go with the show. I think after the third episode, I had someone just reach out on Instagram and say, "Hey, I'd like to sponsor the show."
Wow, cool.
And so it's been really remarkable how it's turned out.
Cash In on Camera, everyone. You need to check it out. Let's move on to the last of your 4-piece framework, which is promotion.
So much about promotion. Well, I am a fan of repurposing content. I like the idea of taking a macro piece of content, let's say a podcast or a live stream, and chunking it down into smaller portions and leveraging that, especially for those who need a lot of brand awareness, who are looking to grow online. These short form videos, let's say under 2 minutes in length, that have been how we like to do it is with meme style branded templates, and putting that out and distributing that on a lot of social platforms to reiterate your message, to build your brand, and to promote without looking like it's promotional.
Yeah.
Is a really powerful way to leverage the effort and multiply your efforts in the content you're making on the macro level. So that's where I like to do, or what I like to do on a promotion side. Yes, I think you can also do some live streaming to promote. Instagram, a video would be a good example of that. Making, it's not IGTV anymore, but Instagram video, you can go live and you can, promote something that you've done. Let's say I do an episode of the show and I do it live. I finish it. I will often go to Instagram then and maybe do a story or do a live video to promote, hey, this is what just happened on the episode. Go and watch the full episode on any of my channels. So there's just different ways you can promote through email.
Yeah.
One thing I think a lot of people are not doing enough of is the content that they are creating. They're not sharing that with their database on a regular basis. Yeah, they're putting out a newsletter, but I think it would be advantageous for people to better promote the content that they're putting effort into on a regular basis. Email signatures is another example. There are tools that allow you to have an email signature, and you can have an embedded video under your signature or hyperlink. And there's so many different ways and creative ways that you can promote the content that you're doing through your own efforts or from the efforts of the people that have been on the show. We follow up with our guests and provide them with tools and graphics to be able to help them promote. We also will help them promote the show by actually having them broadcast it out to their platforms at the same time as I'm doing mine. There's lots of different strategies to promote, but it's a key component to building your brand, doing it fast, is to leverage the other people's audiences, and then also have strategies of your own.
Let's recap the four parts of the framework.
Yeah, the 4P framework is to plan your strategy, plan your communication strategy, starting with who it is you're trying to attract, where are they, and then start looking at how are we going to logistically produce the content, which leads us to step 2, which is to produce it. And you have different options there. You can either do it with recorded video, or you're going to produce it live. Live is a great way to circumvent post-production and all of the hours that it takes to do that.
Yeah.
Then you're getting into the publishing. Again, advantage to live video on this one because there's no post-production involved, but you're publishing it on multiple channels ideally, because we want to have omnipresence and the state of constantly being encountered on multiple platforms, because people are on multiple platforms. And especially if you have a product or service that can serve a multitude of different people who are on different platforms, it's really, really key. And then promote that content. Strategies could involve, again, promoting on your own platforms. It could be leveraging the audiences of other people to be able to get the message out that this amazing content you've created is out there. And also repurposing is really key. Cutting those long form pieces down into short form branded memes, and then getting that out there on a consistent basis and reminding people over and over and over again. And repetition is the key to marketing. Yeah. So you really need to be repeatedly sharing those messages and being, again, constantly in people's, not only in their feeds, but in their psyche, in their minds. Like, you want to be top of mind with people so that when they're ready for your products and services, they think of you first.
Well, Sheryl, I feel like that we've only just scratched the surface. And I do appreciate your insight and your knowledge. It has been really, really informative and helpful today. I'm curious, where would you send people? We're looking for folks who are 6 and 7 figure businesses who are really ready to up their video game. What's the next step?
The next step would be to visit my website at SherylPlouffe.com. And there is a resource bundle there that's free that you can grab, or you can also book a consultation. You can book a consultation outright with me, or there is also a place where you can apply for a partial consultation with me as well. So you can do either of those, and it's at SherylPlouffe.com. Of course, you can follow me at Sheryl Plouffe on any and all social media platforms. The beauty of having a French Canadian name like Plouffe means that Sheryl Plouffe was available on all platforms.
I love it.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, FranklinTaggart.com was too. It was amazing.
Imagine how that works.
Well, Sheryl, I've really enjoyed our conversation today, and I would like to invite you to come back at some time in the future and catch us up on some of the new developments in video as they emerge.
I absolutely would love to do that. Thank you so much, Franklin, for having me today.
Again, my guest today has been Sheryl Plouffe at SherylPlouffe.com. I will make sure that the correct spelling of that is in the description. And for those of you who are watching this on video, you'll be able to see it on screen as well. We are going to be Signing off now, but I do want to say one more reminder. Catch Sheryl's multi-streaming videocast podcast called Cash In on Camera, wherever you take in your content. Thanks again, Sheryl.
Thank you, Franklin.
People who work alone aren't antisocial, at least not most of us. If people think you're weird because you don't want to grow a big company and you'd rather spend most of your time working by yourself, you're just hanging around the wrong people. Your Own Best Company has a Facebook group that you're invited to join right now. We understand the urge to close the door, let your imagination run wild, and stay there until your creative impulse runs its course. We also understand the features and challenges that go along with running a business to support our solo flight lifestyles. Joining the group is free, and it's as easy as clicking the link in the channel description. So go there now and just join the group. Want to hear more where this came from? Subscribe to Your Own Best Company on your favorite podcast app or on the Franklin Taggart Coaching and Consulting YouTube channel. To get in touch with Franklin, send an email to yobc@franklintaggart.com. Thanks for listening.